Greetings and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Run, and today we're playing as Ehden. Our start here is actually really good, and you can see that our stats are kinda through the roof, and when I say through the roof I really mean just a little bit more above than average, but still really good. 3.8 damage with 8 tier delay, and everything else is pretty much positive as well. Our speed, our range, our shot speed, and also our luck, so I really can't complain about anything at this point. And the best thing about just getting a little bit more damage in 3.5, it does allow you to one-shot some of the early enemies, so it's kinda like you have double the damage, just in the terms of how many hits you need to take to actually kill some enemies. Of course, there's still some maybe hard enemies that you have to deal with, like this champion spider in the very first shop, but I think it's worth it because we get 2 luck upgrade in the process. But besides that, we also start out with some pretty decent items. Spelunker's Hat, in my opinion, is one of those items that I always want to have. It allows you to see where the secret rooms are, second secret rooms. It allows you to identify what is in the neighboring rooms, so it does allow you to kind of optimize and use your resources a bit more efficiently. So when you know where the secret rooms are, you can just place a bomb there, or maybe when there's a shop, you're not sure if it's a shop or if it's a library. This item reveals it all, and maybe my favorite use, well, not favorite, but it's very good. If there's a mini boss room near to you and maybe you're not feeling safe enough, you can just never enter it, and it does allow you to open up and kind of see the possibilities that you can have, and kind of helps you plan out the routes that you're gonna take through the level. So for all those reasons, I think Spelunker's Hat is one of the best items that you can possibly wish for, because it doesn't really clash with any of the others, and it also just kind of exists as a separate effect in the game and just kind of as its own thing. And of course, we also have the active item, the pause button, and I feel like this is the real good of this run. And when I say the good, it's really the most interesting item. It was added in Afterbirth Plus, so it's a really recent item. I really didn't have a chance to kind of play around with it a bit more, but what this item does is it pauses everything in the room, just everything stops until you start shooting again. So it's kind of like super hot in some sense, if you know what that game is, but I think it has a lot of strategic potential, and not just that, it also has a lot of defensive potential. If you feel like you're maybe in a corner, you don't know what to do, you press it, you kind of relocate, go to another position, then you start shooting again. But what I think the real power of this item is, as soon as you get something like an orbital, you can pause it and then go right next to the enemies. Of course, because they're frozen and they won't move until you start shooting again, that is essentially like invincibility. You just have to be careful that you don't accidentally walk into them, or of course if they explode or something like that, that's probably not a good idea to do either. So just from all of that perspective, it's a really decent item, and I feel like if you have any synergies or any items that work well with it, it has a lot of potential. And what I like about it is because there's the item telekinesis, and it's kind of a Matrix reference. This is also kind of a Matrix reference if you think about it, because you pause time, then you can kind of do other things in between. So I feel like these 2 items work really well together in some sense, because they have a similar effect. One affects everything in the room, and of course telekinesis only affects the projectiles and the bullets and the tears that come from the enemies. So okay, at this point, we got rid of that item. Obviously we take the Ivy Bag in pretty much every situation, and the main dream here is to use the Ivy Bag and maybe combine that to get a lot of coins and hopefully spend it on the shop. And what I'm really looking for here is a shop with a restock machine, so I can hopefully buy a lot of things. And mainly I'm looking for something to break the game, so something like the jar, blank card, or maybe find an Ava's rune to go further. But really at this point I would really just like a Mama Mega. A Mama Mega would allow us to go to the boss rush. Of course, with boss rush we would get a lot of points, but there's no guarantee to getting it. And maybe one good silver lining in this position is that we only need 1, and if this run we actually did go much further, because we were so behind, we would not only miss boss rush, but we would also miss harsh. So what we would need to do is buy Mama Mega and then deplopiate somehow on the depths to floor, and that might prove to be quite challenging in some situations. But in this particular one, I was really looking forward to just using this combo of Bozo, another one of the new items, and just having a lot of red health with Ivy Bag. And what Bozo does is every time you get hit, or at least take damage, there's a chance that you spawn a rainbow poop on the ground. So if you have enough health, what ends up happening is you just keep playing, you just essentially keep playing the Ivy Bag. You get money in return, and just by the virtue of chance, the rainbow poop is gonna appear on the ground. You're gonna be able to kill it or hit it, heal yourself back up to full again, and then of course you can just kind of keep doing that and get infinite money. So I hope that this was gonna be my strategy in order to break the game, so to say, so I could buy a lot of things from the shop if there was a restock machine, but sadly I didn't have enough HP really to pull that off. I remember doing that and just kind of pulling off that combo at some point in my run. Like I managed to do it once, but I think I had something like 7 red health, which is obviously quite a bit, and not really something that we can look forward to. Of course there's a chance to still get it, maybe if you duplicate a lot of Eternal Hearts, or maybe if you just get just a lot of health upgrades naturally throughout the floors, but sadly that opportunity didn't really present itself, and I feel like there was a chance for me to do something a bit more clever than what I did, but overall I still feel like I made the right decision. But talking about Mama Mega, it actually showed up in the shop, and of course, just by the virtue of chance, I have to take it, but I have another choice or another decision that I can make if I actually want to maximize my score. And looking at it, you can say that there's a sacrifice room on this floor, and I have more than enough health to actually play it. And there are of course some Spirit Hearts and Black Hearts scattered around the room or the floor, so I can actually enter the Dark Room with some health. But the reason I decided not to go via this route, even though it would probably be more beneficial, is two reasons. First of all, I don't think I'm strong enough to tackle the Dark Room. Sure, I have 8.8 damage and my tier delay is not that bad, but I really feel like I can't deal with something like a double adversary room or even a double cage room, just because our DPS just isn't there. We also have no defensive options, and even if it did actually get near close and personal, we just wouldn't be able to deal that much. I guess maybe the only thing that kind of works here in this position is if we kept Ivy Bag, we would be able to use that just to kind of stay invincible and take a little bit less damage. But just because we only have 3 red health, we can only effectively use it twice. So it's not like we have a lot of opportunities to really make that work. So I felt like maybe it's not the best idea to take the sacrifice room just because of the chance of me dying or just not really getting far. But even if you die in the Dark Room and you don't make it to the lamp, it can actually still be worth it to actually get there. And the main reason then again why I decided to go to Boss Rush is because I found the Hermit card. And I felt like if I do have a Hermit card, and of course with the Ivy Bag, what I would be able to do is go to the Boss Rush, beat it, teleport out, and then use another sacrifice room and maybe use my Ivy Bag in that situation. And you might be saying, what Ivy Bag? You don't have Ivy Bag right now. Well, that's the thing I could have done a little bit better. There was a moving box in the shop, and for some reason I just immediately blank that item out whenever I see it. I just don't pick it up because I feel like it's too much hassle. Well, not too much hassle, but it just a very min-maxy item, and while I do enjoy min-maxing sometimes, like in this position I would not be opposed to it, I feel in a lot of cases I just skip the item because I don't like having it, because it feels like then you have to use the moving box, then you have to use the active items in the moving box, then you have to pack them up again, and it's just a lot of mental work and a lot of going back and forth. Obviously it does give you a great benefit, and I'm not opposed to using it, so if you want to use it, then do it. But for me personally, it's just not that fun of an item, so I tend to skip it in most situations. But in this particular one, what I could have done is packed both the Ivy Bag and the Mama Mega in the moving box, went to the next floor and of course used it there. And then I would be able to use Mama Mega and still keep Ivy Bag. And of course Ivy Bag would be useful in Boss Rush because I would be able to take advantage of the Polaroid invincibility, and then of course I would have the Fly, I have my orbitals to kind of deal damage for me, so it would just make everything a little bit easier. But also if there was a sacrifice room, I would be able to use the Polaroid, which I would have gotten on this floor, and use that to be invincible as I actually went through the Dark Room and tried to beat those really hard rooms. So even those problematic rooms which I mentioned before, so double cage rooms, things like that, would now be trivialized because I would be essentially invincible. And of course by using the Ivy Bag I would also get more coins, and that would give me more consumables, and there's always a chance, because now I'm at actually 5 red hearts, that I would get maybe something like the Wafer, or maybe even something like Cancer. I think also reduces your damage in half, and by that with Bozo I would be able to kind of have an infinite item combo, because then I would be able to generate an infinite amount of coins, and of course that means I would be able to generate an infinite amount of points. So it would actually, everything would just kind of click a little bit better. But then again, there was no sacrifice room on this floor, so we really wouldn't be able to go forward. But it would save me something like 1000 damage penalty that I've taken just in that Boss Rush, which is of course unfortunate, but it is what it is. Sometimes that's just gonna end up happening. You can say we finished the run in the 76th place, which is not too good, but also not too terrible. It is a Mom Daily, so you can expect there to be a lot of variance. I don't imagine a lot of people would go maybe in too different of a route, but then again, you know, maybe you enter a Devil Deal from a different chest, you find the shovel, maybe some people find an AWOS rune and I didn't, and that just gives a lot of bonus. I think the first player actually had 57,000 points, and comparing that to my 23,000 points with the potential for 30,000 points, really does show the difference in just how wildly crazy these runs can get. But like I said, I can't complain too much. I did enjoy the run for what it was, and it's always nice to have Bozo, because I feel like it's one of those items which is really fun to pronounce, Bozo, and it actually has a pretty neat effect that you don't get to use that often. So with all that in mind, I hope you enjoyed this one, guys, and I hope to see you next time.